There's a certain, like, there's a couple things that kind of led to the Binding of Isaac, and a lot of it had to do with having money removes a danger, if that makes sense, in doing what I'm doing. So I've never had money, and there was always a risk involved in working for an extended period of time, and I'm risking months and months of my time in something. I'm risking money. I'm risking a paycheck, because I could be doing freelance work, or I could be working at GameStop. So there was, you know, like with Meat Boy, there was an excitement in risking everything. And that excitement was very motivating. You know, you got to get it done. And not having that kind of, like, you see a lot of games now that like get funding. And, you know, aside from you guys, Kickstart wise, I think a lot of people who have what they perceive as their end goal. See, I don't think your guys' end goal was money as much as finishing it. Because if it was money, I think getting the Kickstart money that you got would made you, okay, we can relax. But you find a lot of people who have a lot of money and their games take years and years and years longer than most other games to get finished, because I think that it's hard to be motivated when you have what you perceive to be your end goal. And for me, risking it is more inspiring, because it lights a fire under your ass and you got to get it done because you're running out of money and you're going to be, you know, homeless soon. So you got to get it done. And a lot of the better things that I've done have been kind of like kick in the ass scenarios where I've just got to wrap up and pull something out of my ass. Like when I used to do magazine covers and stuff, sometimes it was like literally down to the line I have 4 hours to finish a cover, and that cover would turn out to be the best, because when you're really pushed to your limits and kind of like you're forced to improvise, honestly improvise, you can't help but do something like, it just goes into that back, the realm somewhere way back here where it just flops out and you got to do it. And I was pretty worried after Meat Boy, where it was like, well, I'm not going to have that danger. You know, I'm not going to have that extra excitement and kick in the ass to do something. So I wanted to do something that was inspiring in a different way and motivating in a different way. And what had happened was Tommy had this new girlfriend who wasn't good. The new girlfriend's great. This other new girlfriend, she wasn't a good one. And he had gone on vacation with her, even though things were bad. Like it looked like it was the beginning of the end, but I think it was kind of one of those, you know, let's go on a vacation to fix things sort of things. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he'll tell you. And he went to Hawaii, and he was going to be gone for a week. And I'm agoraphobic to a degree, so I don't travel. And him going on that trip, I was kind of like, well, I want a vacation too. And of course, Danielle is the whole time yelling in the background, we gotta go do something. We never go do anything. But I really wanted to do something. Like, that was his kind of reward after Meat Boy. And he'd suffered horribly, you know, for months and months after Meat Boy. So he really, really, really deserved a break. So he went on his trip, and I wanted to take a trip too. I wanted to take a break. But I couldn't think of anything that, like, to me, going to Hawaii would be more stressful than the Meat Boy development. Like, honestly, it seems horrible. Like, I'd be riding a panic attack to the date, then I wouldn't be able to go for some reason. And that whole thing would just be horrible. So I wanted to do something fun. I wanted to do something relaxing and inspiring. And I just kind of sat there thinking, like, what is it? What is it that I want? What would be the most relaxing thing I could possibly come up with? And I'm thinking, like, well, I could go buy a bunch of Legos and do those. I can do this, this, and this. But what I defaulted back to was I just want to make a game again. Like, I just want to make a little game. A game in a week. I want to do a game in a week because he's going to be gone for a week. So I'm going to do a game in a week. And this programmer that I worked with in the past that I made Trachnid and the C Word and Coil with, his name is Florian. He's Austrian. He was around, and I was kind of like, hey, you want to do a little Flash game in a week or whatever, just for fun, like old times? And he's like, I don't, he didn't have anything else to do. He didn't at the time tell me that he was actually running out of money, so it was kind of awesome to help him with that. But it was basically like, oh well, let's make a game. And I didn't really have any idea of what I wanted to do, but I definitely wanted to do something risky. I wanted to do something exciting because I wanted something to replace that danger of, running out of money. And the danger was, maybe I could do something that was going to hurt my career in some way. And it sounds stupid, but it's something that I've done a lot in the past, where when I get a little too comfortable with what I'm doing, I've got to break it apart a bit, and I've got to see where the boundaries are. Like when I feel a little too confined, I need to do something to, make sure that I have reach. And even though Meat Boy was, it was very genuine and everything, there was, to a certain degree, we played it safe enough. Like we weren't going to risk our life savings and careers on something that it was a really risky project that might upset people. So I wanted to do something like that. I wanted to do a really risky project that might upset people, because I'm the kind of person that thinks that, really good art should upset some. Not directly, but maybe just in the way that they don't like what it's saying or makes them feel weird, or I don't think really great art is something that has mass appeal for the most part, or maybe that's greater art. I just haven't got there yet. But there's something dangerous about making something that might upset some people, and I thought, oh, I'll do something about religion. And as I said, there's a mystery to religion, and a lot of that mystery kind of left me, when I got, hit puberty, and, a lot of the Bible didn't make logical sense anymore. And, you see how the Bible's used to hurt people, and you get, angsty and angry. And I wanted to just kind of write about it. I wanted to write about my experience with religion, and I wanted to couple it with the basic outline for The Legend of Zelda on NES. So Tommy and I have been talking about working on a game with roguelike elements, which is randomly generated environments and gameplay. And I thought it would be good. I thought it would be smart for me to prototype some roguelike elements while he was away. So that was the basis of this. I wanted to do Legend of Zelda dungeon structure, Legend of Zelda basic theme of what I thought it was. Roguelike about religion, my experience with it. That was basically the outline for this game that we were going to do in a week. And on paper, it made a lot of sense, and it seemed to just connect really well. It had this dungeon structure and the foundation of The Legend of Zelda, where it had keys, a boss room, stuff that would raise your life, and give you items and whatever else. And I kind of wanted to touch on the theme, The Legend of Zelda was kind of based around exploring as a kid, and the mysteries of grabbing a stick and whacking down weeds, and you were that was your sword, and turn over a rock and maybe there's a snake there and that's your pet, sort of thing. And that was why I think I always really connected with Zelda so much as a kid. There was a lot of mystery involved there, and I was that kind of kid that would just go explore. I'd prefer to explore by myself because, then I don't have to explain the rules to the other person. I know the rules. And if I explain it, it just destroys the illusion. So I'd go out by myself with my stick and knock down trees and collect bugs and lizards, and that's what I did as a kid. And that's where I think I connected with Zelda, and I wanted that same kind of feel, but I wanted the darkness as well. In the same way Ether was the dangers of being a creative kid. And then in Isaac, it really was too. It kind of summed up, Binding of Isaac was about the dangers of being a creative kid when religion is a big part of your life and how it could affect you. in both the negative and the positive ways. Originally going in, I was just focusing on the negative because, I was being angsty and, and I kind of wanted to like knock things a bit. But the cool thing about making it, when it continued past the 1 week mark and we saw that it had potential and we could, build off of it, was that it became more of a conversation with myself about religion and about how it affected me when I was little, and not necessarily in the negative ways. The negatives were obvious, growing up with one side of my family Christian, born again Christian. I grew up with, they were, they would go to the Fiji Islands and convert people. Like, they were hardcore. So when I'd go over there with my magic cards or a D&D book, I got told that I was going to hell, and I got, all the weird shit piled on top of me. I was condemned constantly. I was the, black sheep of that family there. And I never really fit in, and the religion stuff didn't make me fit in anymore. And I definitely wanted to write about that. And the basic story was, there's a story in the Bible called The Binding of Isaac where God asked this guy to basically sacrifice his son to prove that he loves God more than anything else. Like, God's number one. Kill your son. And then, just kidding. I wasn't really going to let you kill your son. I just wanted to see. And that story always struck me as really fucked up. But, Old Testament stuff, God was very vengeful and jealous, which seems really weird for God to be. But I wanted to, I always thought it was interesting because there's so much in the Bible now that happens now that no one ever believes, which is kind of why I actually think that a lot of people who are religious aren't religious and don't really believe the things that they believe that are written, because no one ever puts any faith in someone saying that God's telling me I need to do these things. That person's crazy. But in the Bible, it happened all the time. It happened all the time. No one questioned it. But now everybody questions it. Even these devout, religious people think that, that person's a lunatic. But it's like in the fucking book that you read and you believe. So I kind of wanted to play around with that. So I made it like the context of the story now. Like a woman who's Christian and a little fanatical with the Christianity. She hears the voice of God basically telling her that her son's corrupted or whatever, and she needs to kill him to prove her love to God. And of course she does it. And I thought that was just interesting in itself, because I think that would bring up, or at least make people think about that. What I basically was just saying, wait, this happens. The sad thing is it actually happened multiple times after the game came out, and I got worried, but I knew it had nothing to do with the game. But it happened. It's not uncommon for mothers to kill their kids and say that God did it. God told them to do it. It's something that happens. So I thought it was just an interesting subject matter. And the more I kind of delved into it, the more inspired I was by a lot of my Catholic upbringing, which was very ritualistic and mysterious. And, you light a candle for your relatives that might be in purgatory to get them out. You pray X amount of prayers to help people. My grandma used to do a prayer of safe passage. And I clearly remember talking to her about it. And I'm like, what are you doing? When I was little. And she would explain that she's basically telling God to put a shield around the car so when we go over the hill that we're protected. And I thought that was amazing. My grandma used to cast spells all the time, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I always believed that it was real, And the more I pulled from that, because I had to pull all these kind of, religious themes into the game, the more I realized how inspiring that was to me as a kid, creatively. I remember, because I went through 7 years of catechism. So I knew a lot. I knew a lot about the Catholic religion, and even though I stopped before I got confirmed, I always thought it was really interesting. It was boring for the most part, going to church and stuff, but there's you can't look at my work and not see that there's a direct connection to like the morbid aspects of the Bible. Like, you know, every Sunday I'd go to church and we would drink the blood and eat the flesh of our Christ, who was our Savior, who sacrificed himself for us. And it's like all those things become holy, like blood and guts, sacrifice, you know, it's all holy. And when you're little and you're not getting the whole story, when you have the picture of the dying man suffering on your wall, there's something there, I think, that it definitely like woke up in me. And when people always ask, you know, why is your stuff so dark and weird? It's because I grew up Catholic. Like, it's because that's what surrounded me. And it wasn't, that stuff wasn't considered bad. It was considered holy. It was considered exalted. Like it was, you know, what you, self-sacrifice was the ultimate gift to the world. And that was kind of the cool thing I came out of it. Like, make this game about religion that was originally just going to be about the negative aspects of how religion could affect a child. And I kind of came out of it with, you know, if I didn't have religion as a kid, I wouldn't be here, because I wouldn't have this kind of creativity that I pulled from that inspired me as a kid. Or maybe I would, and I would just be doing Disney films. But for the most part, there was just something there that I was able to take a step back and realize that, like, that it helped in a lot of ways. It hurt in a lot of ways too, but definitely aspects of it helped. And it definitely touched back on the mysterious aspects of the world, the undefined things, which I obviously still have somewhere inside me, because I have, you know, I have weird little phobias of things that aren't rational, and I will sometimes pray and stuff like that, even though, like, I don't really necessarily believe that there's a God. I'll pray to my grandma, you know, stuff like that. And I know that stuff is there, and sometimes it's really cool to remind myself that it is there. There's still an undefined, I don't know where I go when I die. I won't know until I'm dead. That's a fun mystery. It's probably one of the reasons why death is a reoccurring thing in my work. Anything mysterious is pretty inspiring, but in the end, the game actually became more about that, like more about not only the negatives, but somewhat the positives. And I kind of danced around that in the game with the story, and how Isaac, like, the story that's happening is drawn on pieces of paper, and you kind of wonder, like, how much of this is actually, how much of this happened to the kid, or how much of this he's just making up. And that's part of all his, you know, wild imagination that was pulled in from, you know, his religious upbringing. And it was really cool. It was very fun to work on. It sucked that I didn't work on with Tommy, but it was still something that I got done in only, 3 months. And when we released it, I was 100% positive that it was going to fail. I've never been so certain of something in my life. I was originally going to release it for free, and I started to kind of shop it around to different people and say, like, do you think I should put this up for free? Do you think I should get sponsored or whatever else? And I was originally going to just sell it to Adult Swim for $40,000, which is usually one of the higher going rates for, like, ownership. You just sell it. It's just ownership of a Flash game. And I ended up just, again, asking. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think Steam would want it. But I just said, I'll just ask and see, because if there's a chance that they might actually want to put it up on their service, you know, I could maybe possibly get more than 40 grand if it got the underground cult following that I thought it might get. And Steam played it and they loved it. And I was like, well, I'm going to put it up for real cheap. So I put it up for $5, because I hoped at the most, like, fans of Super Meat Boy would just see my name and just be like, it's only $5. Like, I'll just try it out. But, like, and it came out, and it didn't have any negative reaction. Like it didn't upset anybody, which was good, because I didn't want to upset everybody. You know, I was fine with people being upset that were, you know, maybe religious assholes. You know, that's totally fine. You know, but I didn't want to upset just regular religious people. And for the most part, there were a lot of religious people that actually were brought in because of the religious themes, because they got it for the most part. I remember getting a lot of emails and even reviews from people. Like I got a review on like a 9.5 from this guy who was a pastor at some church, said that the game was great and like loved it. Loved the fact that it was just a lot of aspects of it were from the book, you know? We put it out and it did pretty well. Like it better than obviously better than I thought. I was able to make, you know, what I would have gotten sponsorship in the first month, and it was a moderate success. It was pretty good, and a lot of people seemed to like it. And then some time passed, like 4 months, 5 months passed, and then like I started noticing sales were going up, like, and which is unheard of unless you're Minecraft, you know. And it was odd, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then like 2 months later, it was going up again, and it went up from like, you know, maybe like 60 to 100 copies a day. Then it was like 250, 300 copies a day. Then it was like 600, 700 copies a day. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is going on here? And I start looking around online, and I'm trying to figure out, is someone posting about this? Am I getting reviews? And for the most part, the reviews were just like 8s. It was pretty good, you know, but not everybody really liked it that much. It wasn't like a universal thing like Meat Boy, like all the people loved it. It wasn't a big thing. And by like 6 months after release, it was selling 1,000-something copies a day. And I couldn't figure it out until I started searching on YouTube for it and stuff, and started noticing that every day that there were like 200 Let's Plays. So it became like this underground hit that just rose up. Everybody was doing videos. Since the game can be played repeatedly and always get a different outcome and always get it's always different. It's randomly generated. It makes for like the perfect game for people to play over and over again, make videos of, and show their adventure, because it's always a different adventure. And then also talk about it. Like a lot of people wanted to talk about it. They wanted to talk about all the different interpretations of what the game meant, you know, what the different endings were. The game was so layered with different secrets and different things to discover. There was a lot of mystery in the game. And it became this big, you know, collective internet thing where people were trying to discover all the secrets and figure out all the probabilities of everything. And I guess eventually they cracked it, because some of them were like, they actually found ratios and figured, you know, the drop rates of things and stuff, which I didn't think was possible. But it grew and grew and grew and grew, and then it just exploded around the time that we released this expansion for it. And it was just selling like 2,000, 3,000 copies a day, you know, for a very extended period of time. And, you know, 9 months into its release, it had crossed the 1 million mark. And which was insane, because I never thought I'd make another game that would sell 1 million copies, let alone a game that I just spent a few months on and sold for $5 for, you know, that I was unsure of. And to think that I would have just sold the rights to some company for 40 grand seems crazy. But it was very extra inspiring to me, not only because I was so certain that this wouldn't do well. It's nice to know that people really want what they don't know exists. You know, they want something new, even if it's, because the game's really rough around the edges. Like, honestly, it's not something that I'm happy with technically in the slightest. It runs poorly. I don't think the art's that good. You know, I kind of just threw it together. You know, it's quick. I did it quickly in 3 months. It was very buggy. A lot of work went into trying to fix all the shitty bugs, and we made it in Flash, which is not a tool that you're supposed to use. It was AS2. It's an old action scripting program, and you're not supposed to do what we did with it. It was a mess. But it did so well. So it kind of gave me hope in a lot of things. It was nice to know that something that was just a really risky project that I thought might have some sort of very small underground cult following would blow up so big. It was pretty mind-blowing. But the thing that really made me happy about the whole thing was that for some reason, well, I think I know the reason, but it really connected to creative outcasts. And it's kind of what the game's about. And to the point of like the game having so much fan art and so much like fan videos, fan games, like just inspiring so many people, and people to the point of fan fiction, like people have Tumblr blogs where they play as a character in the game. Not just, so there's a lot of main characters, but then there's other just bosses and stuff. And they play as those bosses, and then people ask them questions, and then they like respond with a drawing as well as text of like the character they like. And it was special too, because I also got to, so every character in the game is Isaac, but there's different, like he puts a wig on and then he becomes Eve. And there's a lot of play of like, I wanted to have other genders in the game, but it also touched on like a transgendered aspect as well that a lot of people really connected to. Because in a lot of ways, the game's also about a child feeling like he's been born wrong. And I felt that was important to add. And I think a lot of people connected to that as well. There's just a lot of there's just so much, like there's just so many things about the game that people grab onto and they're like, this is mine. And then that might be a cool sound effect for that moment. But yeah, I think there's a lot that people could grab onto. And I didn't see it going in at all. I didn't expect it. I didn't, like with Meat Boy, I thought Dr. Fetus is cool. You know, I think people like him because I like him. But with Isaac, it was like there was a lot of different characters, and I didn't necessarily relate to every single one. But I wrote him in a way where I could connect in some aspect to it, but not as directly specific as like Dr. Fetus, Meat Boy, and Band-Aid Girl. But it was nice to know that there were so many people out there who could connect to these random characters that I just gave very vague, you know, characters. Like they have a very vague character. Some of them it's just like a freak boss that happens to be a girl. And like, you'd be surprised at how that changes so much. Like, because there'll be a mystery to it. It's like, is Gertie a girl? Because I refer to it, when I designed Gertie, she was in my head a girl. And even though there's nothing about her physically that would make her a girl, it was very interesting for people to hear that in an interview. Oh, Gertie's a girl. Oh, I've got to write about it. Like, go on the wiki and we've discovered Gertie's a girl. And then like all these people are like, oh, she's a girl, and then they become her, their favorite character. I don't know. There's just a lot of different things about it. I think people grabbed onto that made me really happy, and I learned a lot from it. I think I learned how to tell a story better with gameplay and theme. I also got to play around with interpretation again, which when I made Coil, I wasn't happy with the vagueness of it because it wasn't intentional. In this way, I kind of wanted to play off of how the Bible can be read different ways, and people can see so many different things in it because it was written in that way, like in almost an intentional way. It's like pretty vague, and a lot of people can grab all these different interpretations. So I wanted the game to kind of be like that as well, kind of embody how the Bible is written, vague. So anybody can just attach themselves to a certain part of it and say, this is for me. And it was a cool adventure. It was very, very fun to work on. And we're handing it off to a publisher, Nicholas, who did Cave Story and V. And they're going to be remaking it for console sometime, probably within a year or something like that. But I want to be very hands-off with it because it was fun to work on it for the months that I worked on it. It's been almost a year now, and I want to move on to projects with Tommy and stuff that we've been working on and off for quite a while, and I just want to focus on that stuff, and I don't want to have to worry about it, so I'm kind of just handing it off to them and letting them kind of finish it. And I'm still going to be like, the person who says what goes and what stays. But for the most part, I won't have a lot of work to do.